On Thanksgiving morning, as I awoke in my Chicago residence, the familiar apprehension began to tighten in my chest. It was time for another annual family gathering. This year's chosen location was the Breakers, a high-end resort hotel situated in Palm Beach, Florida. This was our yearly family excursion, with all costs borne by my grandfather. While performing a final inspection of my luggage, I exhaled deeply. I studied my reflection in the mirror. I am Helen Walker, 33 years of age, employed as a research director at a pharmaceutical firm with an annual salary of $160,000. I reside alone in Chicago. I have consistently accumulated my wealth through prudent investments. Financial resources are significant, but self-respect is paramount. My grandfather's words resonated in my thoughts. He is a successful entrepreneur who amassed his wealth in the construction industry. All my knowledge of financial stewardship I acquired from him. Since my youth, he eagerly imparted his wisdom on investments and wealth management. He is the sole member of the family who genuinely comprehends me. In sharp contrast stands my sister, Catherine, a former airline stewardess, now a full-time homemaker. She leads a seemingly prosperous life with her spouse and 7-year-old daughter. However, this lifestyle would be unattainable without regular financial assistance from our grandfather. Their substantial mortgage, vehicle loans, and their daughter's private education all are funded by grandfather's contributions. Nevertheless, Catherine's social media profiles are replete with ostentatious displays, new designer handbags, meals at upscale dining establishments, lavish getaways. She appears fixated on projecting an image far removed from her actual circumstances. My parents, George and Margaret, are comparable. They give the impression of relishing a tranquil retirement in Florida, but that too would be unsustainable without grandfather's support. Their retirement fund, the initial payment for the exclusive retirement community, everything is reliant on grandfather. My parents have consistently been distant towards me, yet overly permissive with my sister. This dynamic has persisted since our childhood. During my university years, I financed my education through academic grants and earned my living expenses via part-time employment. Concurrently, my sister depended entirely on our parents for all her needs, from study abroad programs to daily living costs. The inequality remains a source of lingering hurt. Become an individual capable of self-reliance. That was another of grandfather's maxims. I have adhered to those words, studying and laboring diligently to achieve autonomy. I established my career in the pharmaceutical sector, augmented my assets through investments, and forged a life independent of external support. The high-rise apartment with a view of the Chicago cityscape was acquired through my own endeavors. Modest affluence within my capabilities. That is the existence I have embraced. As I grasped my suitcase, the unease regarding this year's Thanksgiving intensified. Year after year, our family's dysfunctional relationships only exacerbate my feelings. My sister's ostentatious rivalry, our parents' skewed affection, and grandfather's concerned gaze. In the taxi en route to the airport, I pondered this year's excursion. The Breakers, a renowned 5-star establishment founded in 1896, boasting Italian Renaissance design and opulent suites priced above $800 nightly. The Thanksgiving dinner was rumored to cost $200 per individual. Despite the extravagant locale, our family's foundation was precarious and distorted. My sister's lavish lifestyle, our parents' comfortable retirement, all were edifices built upon the unstable ground of grandfather's generosity. And this year, those distortions were poised to reach a critical juncture. Everyone must have been aware, yet no one ventured to acknowledge the impending reality. Through the taxi window, from Palm Beach International Airport to the Breakers, Florida's mild sunlight filtered in. On Thanksgiving Day, I reached the luxurious resort under agreeable weather conditions. I was the final arrival. Towing my navy Rimowa luggage, I entered the magnificent Italian Renaissance-style structure. My understated, yet refined theory dress had sustained slight creases during the lengthy journey. The lobby presented a pristine and dignified expanse. Above, extravagant chandeliers shimmered, and below, footsteps resonated softly on the marble flooring. Other patrons were already immersed in their Thanksgiving afternoon pursuits. Proceeding to the reception desk, I observed my parents. They seemed engaged in a discussion in a somewhat private section of the lobby. My mother was attired in what appeared to be a new resort dress, while my father wore casual clothing befitting his age. Upon meeting my gaze, they swiftly averted their eyes. "Miss Walker, I regret to inform you, but I'm unable to locate your booking." The front desk attendant's voice was apologetic. They continued to examine the computer screen, their bewilderment evident. "I can access the reservations for your relatives, but—" At that instant, the sound of costly heels approached. I pivoted to see Catherine advancing towards us, a triumphant demeanor evident. A Hermes Birkin bag rested on her arm, and a Cartier watch glittered. "Oh, Helen, you've arrived at last." Her tone was laced with intentional mockery. The reception staff persisted in their system check as the attention of other guests began to shift towards us. "How peculiar that there's no reservation." Catherine's voice amplified, seemingly calculated to attract the notice of those nearby. Her Louis Vuitton suitcase stood prominently beside my own navy one. In reality, Catherine moved closer, sporting a look of triumph. "I arranged accommodations solely for our immediate family." Her words resonated through the lobby with a taunting inflection. She elaborated, "A suite for myself, my spouse, and our child, and another for mother and father. Exclusively for the authentic family, you comprehend." A hush descended. The front desk personnel were rendered mute, and our parents retreated even further. The atmosphere around me felt instantaneously congealed. Inhaling deliberately, I stated, my expression unwavering, "I understand. In that case, I shall depart." My voice emerged more composed than I anticipated. Readjusting my hold on the suitcase handle, I offered a courteous nod to the reception staff. Retrieving my smartphone, I activated the ride-hailing application. "Hold on." Catherine's voice elevated slightly, but I was already making preparations to exit the lobby. Sensing the sympathetic gazes of the front desk attendants, I commenced walking towards the exit. My sister, though momentarily disconcerted by this unforeseen turn of events, sustained her expression of victory. Our parents remained awkwardly static, the silence punctuated solely by the sound of my footfalls. The afternoon sunlight filtering through the main entrance seemed unusually intense. As I awaited the taxi, palm fronds swayed in the agreeable breeze. The Thanksgiving holiday I was slated to spend at this opulent resort had concluded within mere minutes. Yet, in that instant, a peculiar sense of emancipation permeated my being. Grandfather's words reemerged, "Become an individual capable of self-reliance." Now I felt I grasped the true import of that phrase. During the brief wait for the taxi, I contemplated the hotel's imposing exterior. The Adams-style architecture narrated a tale spanning over a century of history. Extravagantly adorned for Thanksgiving festivities, luxurious automobiles continuously arrived, discharging elegantly attired families. Through the lobby's glass facade, I could discern my niece, Amy, clad in an expensive dress ill-suited for a 7-year-old. She was shifting restlessly behind her mother, perhaps seeking my presence. Every Thanksgiving, it had been my custom to present her with a gift. This year I had procured a pearl hair accessory, still exquisitely wrapped within my suitcase. Boarding the arriving taxi, I instructed the driver to proceed to Palm Beach International Airport. On my smartphone, I was already perusing available flights to Chicago. Although airfares are inflated during the Thanksgiving period, this did not concern me. Instead, the emotional toll I expended annually during this season seemed far more exorbitant. Through the rearview mirror, the breaker's edifice diminished in size, its form shimmering in the afternoon sunlight, seemingly emblematic of our family's superficial affluence. And now, the initial fissure had manifested in that facade. I could not foresee the subsequent events, but one certainty prevailed. There was no turning back. The taxi's interior afforded a tranquil haven, insulated from the external commotion. The air conditioning maintained a pleasant coolness, and the high-quality leather seating gradually alleviated the tension from the preceding events. Outside the window, Palm Beach's characteristic resort landscape unfurled. Meticulously aligned palm trees, white luxurious residences, and occasional glimpses of the Atlantic's glistening expanse. Vistas that would typically enthrall me now felt strangely remote. I retrieved my smartphone and dialed my grandfather's number without hesitation. The ringtone prior to his answering seemed protracted. "Helen, is something amiss?" Grandfather's voice retained its customary equanimity. "I have a report to make," I commenced, speaking in a factual manner. I recounted the events at the hotel dispassionately, presenting solely the facts: the absent reservation, Catherine's pronouncements, and my departure. I narrated everything in chronological sequence. On the opposite end of the line, I could perceive grandfather's respiration becoming slightly labored. I could discern that he was suppressing his ire. However, I refrained from adding any word soliciting commiseration. "I comprehend. I shall address this matter." Grandfather's voice was subdued and weighty. These concise words held a foreboding of what was to transpire. Shortly after concluding the call, the influx of incoming calls commenced. Initially from Catherine, over 10 missed calls registered within a quarter of an hour. "Helen, Amy desires your presence. She was anticipating our yearly Thanksgiving. Can't you consider a child's sentiments? My acquaintances are arriving for dinner this evening. I intended to publish a flawless family Thanksgiving on Instagram. Are you aware of the humiliation involved in explaining this circumstance?" Catherine's voice grew progressively more frantic. Interspersed with these calls, electronic messages from our parents began to arrive. "We could have secured an additional room, but as Catherine articulated, we prioritize the actual family. You are independent now, are you not?" Mother's email mirrored years of detachment. "If your financial situation permits, why not procure another room yourself? Your salary should accommodate it. It shouldn't be a significant issue. Why are you exhibiting such emotionality?" A subsequent email even included spiteful financial justifications. Father's email was even more callous. "Catherine possesses a family, a spouse, and a progeny. You comprehend, correct? Can't you simply acquiesce quietly for Thanksgiving? That has invariably been your deficiency, prioritizing your own needs, never contemplating the family." Mother continued, in a tone that positioned me as the antagonist. "We had meticulously planned everything for social media. Okay, here's a paraphrased version of the text following your instructions. We were meant to capture beautiful photographs of you and Amy, but everything is spoiled." Now, my chest constricted with each incoming text, though these were phrases I should be accustomed to by now. Since we were young, my sister and I had consistently faced this type of bias. As the cab approached the airport, a fresh flood of texts arrived. "Because of your inconsiderate actions, Amy is upset. She was eagerly anticipating seeing her aunt." My sister persisted in using her child as a defense. To the very end, behind that, I could discern nothing but conceit and ego from Mother. More mocking emails came. "Poor Catherine. If you only knew how anxious she is regarding Amy's prospects, you wouldn't comprehend. But educating children costs money." And yet, at this moment, I felt no inclination to respond. If anything, I was thankful they had revealed such obvious true colors. Just before we arrived at the airport, an email from grandfather landed. "I commend your choice. I grasp everything." Upon reading those words, my eyes momentarily filled with warmth. However, these were not tears of sorrow, but rather a serene resolve, signaling the start of a fresh journey. My phone continued to buzz with unrelenting calls, Urgent texts from my sister demanding, "Pick up the phone immediately." Tired and accusing emails from our parents, stating, "Your self-centeredness is fracturing the family." But I had already moved beyond the reach of anyone's voice. Exiting the taxi, I proceeded towards the international departures area. As I reserved my ticket to Chicago, I experienced an unusual feeling of release. This was the instant of breaking free from the artificial, real family. Roughly half an hour after taking my seat on the Chicago-bound aircraft, a new email from grandfather appeared, addressed to all family members. The subsequent message constitutes my conclusive declaration. The email commenced in grandfather's typically formal tone. Today, on Thanksgiving, an event transpired that profoundly undermined our family's honor. The harsh treatment of Helen is a disgrace to the Walker family name and will not be condoned under any condition. With immediate effect, I am suspending all monetary aid to George, Margaret, and Catherine. I must emphasize that your opulent way of life is wholly reliant on my aid. Those who have forgotten the essence of family, submerged in conceit and illusion, are no longer eligible for such benefits. Just as I concluded reading that section, calls from my sister started pouring in. Her panicked condition was apparent from the barrage of incoming calls. "Helen, please answer your phone. Persuade Grandpa." Messages left on voicemail captured my sister's voice, filled with alarm. It was evident that her lifestyle would become untenable without the regular monthly allowances. All of her expenditures were planned around grandfather's monthly contribution of $30,000. Emails from our parents also deluged my inbox. Their earlier haughty demeanor had vanished, substituted with frantic appeals. "Helen, this concerns our future security. Could you kindly intercede with your grandfather once more? The $150,000 down payment for their booked upscale retirement residence would be lost, and their health insurance benefits would cease." Our parents appeared to be panicking at the prospect of their retirement security disintegrating instantly. "Do something. He'll heed you, won't he?" Mother's email included unusual expressions of remorse. "I apologize for my harsh words earlier, but this is a familial emergency." I silently deactivated my smartphone. An expansive expanse of clouds stretched out beyond the aircraft window. The ideal family Thanksgiving pictures, traditionally shared on social networks annually, would not be posted this year. For Catherine, that might represent an even graver setback than the monetary one. The aircraft was progressing smoothly towards Chicago, devoid of any disturbances. The individual seated beside me appeared to be pondering Thanksgiving meal arrangements, perusing culinary suggestions on their phone. Ordinarily, at this juncture, I would have been presenting Amy with her gift in the hotel's reception area. Upon connecting to my home Wi-Fi in Chicago after landing, I discovered more than 100 unread messages. The majority originated from my sister, their substance growing progressively more desperate. What am I to do? I can't meet the loan repayments. What about Amy's tuition? Emails from our parents had also adopted a graver tone. We might forfeit the retirement home deposit. What options do we have? I'm sleepless, worrying about the medical coverage. However, the item that garnered the greatest notice was grandfather's ultimate communication, dispatched to every family member. "This action is definitive. Deem it the repercussion of your own deeds. Any dissent to my verdict will precipitate the cessation of all residual assistance." I methodically perused the incoming messages. Their previously supercilious bearing had entirely transformed into one of desperate entreaty. Never before had each family member's authentic character been so starkly exposed. Placing my smartphone aside, I prepared tea in the kitchen. Normally, I would have, by this point, been partaking in the hotel's opulent dinner, a Thanksgiving feast priced at $200 for each guest. Recalling that figure brought a faint smile to my face. Annually, my sister's family had showcased this extravagant meal on social media, yet in actuality, they were straining to even cover their monthly credit card minimums. A fresh call came through, this one from my sister's spouse. Mingled with alarm and bewilderment were words criticizing his wife's profligate habits. It appeared fissures were starting to form in their marital union as well. More detailed appeals arrived from our parents. The retirement community won't reimburse the $150,000 upfront payment. Health coverage will be out of pocket starting next month, all because of you. Following those statements was a reiteration of defending my sister and censuring me. It was as though they hadn't absorbed any lessons. I retrieved a lemon from the refrigerator and infused it into my tea. The following day, I would resume my usual work routine. Fresh research data interpretation awaited in the pharmaceutical firm's undertaking. $160,000 yearly income, consistently accumulating investment vehicles, a robust life foundation constructed through my individual endeavors. Outside, Chicago's nocturnal panorama shimmered softly. The illuminations of the skyscrapers resembled celestial bodies. Abruptly, I recalled my own credit card statement. Complete payment monthly, measured indulgence within my capabilities, zero debt. Grandfather's cherished maxim resurfaced. Conceit is for show, thrift is for oneself. In this metropolis, I had sculpted my existence through my personal dedication. As grandfather articulated, I had evolved into an individual capable of self-reliance. And presently, I profoundly sensed the correctness of that decision. From my smartphone, incoming calls persisted in sounding, but they were voices that would no longer penetrate my awareness. 2 weeks following Thanksgiving, in the nascent days of December, Chicago was enveloped in its initial snowfall. Days were immersed in novel initiatives at the pharmaceutical company's research facility. Amidst the consistent daily rhythm, my family's circumstances had undergone radical transformations. The alterations were initially perceptible on social media platforms. My sister's Instagram feed, which had been refreshed almost daily, had abruptly fallen dormant. Her final entry was from the day preceding Thanksgiving, a photograph of her designer handbag at a high-end eatery, captioned with aspirational lifestyle. The remarks praising her wonderful life now appeared excruciatingly incongruous. Emails from father finally displayed authentic contrition. I'm contemplating our years of lavish expenditure. We overindulged Catherine and treated you coldly. I express my regret. Comparable communications arrived from mother. With their health insurance benefits terminated, they were at last comprehending the genuine expense of medical provision. Our retirement funds alone are woefully inadequate. I now appreciate how extravagantly we were existing. Catherine's predicament was even graver. I received an unforeseen call from her husband. I've uncovered concealed liabilities she kept secret. I'm appalled by the credit card statements. We can't sustain this mode of living any longer. With grandfather's assistance abruptly severed, their pretense of prosperity was swiftly disintegrating. We're contemplating relocation to a more affordable residence, exploring public education options for Amy as well. Catherine weeps nightly, his voice infused with fatigue and acceptance. Their marital bond itself appeared to be under duress. In juxtaposition, my life sustained its tranquility. I reach my workplace at 8:00 a.m. and depart for home at 6:00 p.m. Weekends are devoted to participating in investment seminars, overseeing my savings administration, and perpetuating my existence within judicious limits. Just yesterday, I was elevated to the position of project lead for a novel research endeavor. My remuneration is projected to ascend incrementally. Investment trust functionalities are progressing favorably, with no apprehensions regarding the foreseeable future. Ostentation yields ephemeral gratification. Frugality furnishes enduring serenity. The significance of grandfather's aphorism was now being profoundly experienced by the entire family. While my parents fretted over retirement and financial stability, and my sister grappled with debt management, I was merely persevering in my customary routine. Over these 2 weeks, the regularity of emails and calls had markedly diminished. The frantic communications that arrived daily during the initial days had dwindled to once or twice weekly. Their substance, too, was progressively transitioning towards acceptance. Amy will be enrolling in a public institution. She'll utilize the school transportation service. I never envisioned my sister's most recent email exhibited indications of embracing reality. The dream private education she had flaunted on social networks would never again be publicized. Our parents were likewise deliberating a move from their upscale Florida community to a cost-effective condominium, contending with medical expense disbursements. Their aspiration of a lavish retirement had crumbled effortlessly. "We've been adhering to erroneous principles for an extended period," was the statement contained in Father's latest email. Nevertheless, whether this acknowledgement would serve as a stimulus for reestablishing genuine familial connections remained ambiguous. Last week, I acquired a succinct email from Grandfather. "Awakening to life's realities occasionally inflicts anguish, but it's indispensable anguish. Your determination imparted a crucial lesson to them." I refrained from responding. I merely archived the email discreetly. In Chicago's wintry expanse, fresh stars were coruscating. 3 months after that Thanksgiving, nascent indications of vernal emergence were becoming discernible in Chicago. My existence had not altered, or rather, it had become even more rewarding. The fresh initiative at the pharmaceutical firm was advancing seamlessly, and the previous week I received notification of an advancement. My accomplishments as research director were acknowledged, and my compensation would be elevated to $200,000. Investment trust activities were likewise flourishing, with assets persistently expanding at a consistent rate. From my office vantage point, I could observe the expansive breadth of Lake Michigan. Waves glistening under the vernal sunlight communicated a serene optimism. Novel research findings were amassed on my desk. Time dedicated to work constituted my most valued periods. A birthday gift from Grandfather had materialized the other day. A modest pearl necklace. The accompanying card featured a solitary line in his characteristic refined script. "Authentic radiance resides in those who are self-reliant." I had initiated the maintenance of minimal communication with my parents. They had relocated from their opulent Florida community to a budget-friendly condominium, those contending with medical invoice settlements. They appear to be incrementally acclimating to actuality. Extravagance furnishes fleeting pleasure, but there is enduring assurance in a pragmatic way of life. Mother's email conveyed sentiments of genuine comprehension for the initial occasion. My sister's family had transitioned to a conventional suburban locale. Amy had commenced attendance at a public educational institution and was adapting to commuting via the school bus. Catherine's social media presence persisted in its dormancy. How hollow it all appears presently, publishing solely to maintain societal expectations. Such phrases materialized in an infrequent email from my sister. Days were consumed grappling with credit card obligations. Their marital relationship remained tense, but at the minimum, they were no longer averting their gaze from reality. I had commenced the establishment of fresh objectives. I aspired to amass further accomplishments in pharmaceutical investigation and, ultimately, to spearhead my own research group. I intend to impart my insights and proficiency to budding researchers. During holidays, I frequented study groups focused on investment and economic principles. The individuals I encountered there all conducted grounded, sensible lives. The forthright dialogues, devoid of affectation and conceit, were invigorating. The Thanksgiving episode had bequeathed significant lessons to every member of the family. The significance of fiscal autonomy, the vacuousness of an ostentatious lifestyle, and, paramountly, the authentic essence of kinship. Grandfather's concluding words still resonated within my heart. Genuine connections can solely be engendered subsequent to surmounting adversity. Within my desk repository, the pearl hair accessory I had procured as Amy's offering still reposed, exquisitely enwrapped. Someday, when she discerns genuine worth, when she comprehends the criticality of self-reliance rather than valuing social media endorsements, perhaps that will constitute the opportune moment to present her with this trinket. Outside the window, early spring breezes stirred through the arboreal specimens lining the thoroughfare, as though heralding the inception of a fresh epoch.